American Revolution was an event between the British and the colonists in America. The colonists rebelled against the British for choosing what they did and making the rules by themselves without the colonists getting a say in it, or no taxation without representation. We'll be talking about events that happened during the American Revolution. We'll be talking about Sugar Act, Stamp Act, Tea Act, and the Boston Tea Party. By talking about these events, we will conclude why these events are important and why people rebelled. On April 5, 1764, Parliament passed and modified the Sugar Act and Molasses Act in 1733. George Grenville started this act. He was Prime Minister of Great Britain. Under the Molasses Act, colonial merchants had been required to pay tax of 6 pence per gallon on the importation of molasses. Unfortunately, because of the cooperation, they all mostly took the taxes and undercut the tax. The English product would be cheaper than the form of French West Indies. And it hurt the British West Indies market in molasses and sugar and rum. The colonies had been producing the cheaper French molasses. The First Lord or Treasury and others were trying to make them more active to make enforcements. But then the Parliament started to make adjustments to the trade regulations. Then the Sugar Act reduced the rate of tax on molasses to 3 pence per gallon. The act also listed more foraging goods to tax like sugar, certain wines, coffee, pimento, and etc. But they also had lumber and iron. Enforced taxes were almost caused an immediate decline in the rum because of the industry in the colonies. It had combined effect on the new duties that were reduced with the trade of Madeira and the French West Indies and more. I think that all the important destination ports for lumber, flour, cheese, and assorted farm products were situated in the colonial economy by reducing the markets to which they were allowed to sell, and that made the currency available for them for the purchase of British manufactured goods. I think people rebelled because the taxes were very low and people could not pay their taxes because they were so low. People wanted to rebel to get what they wanted.
Back started in 1765. The Stamp Act was where all American colonists had to pay tax for every piece of printed paper they used. For example, legal documents, licenses, newspapers, etc. The money that was collected from this act was to help pay the cost of defending and protecting the Americans. The one that proposed this act was George Grenville, who was a Prime Minister of Great Britain. The colonists were angry at the British for this act because it represented an effort by the British to use taxes in order to raise money and not to regulate commerce as in the past. The colonists protested during the act by refusing to pay the tax. The tax collectors, which were known as the Sons of Liberty, threatened the colonists to quit their job, and the colonies boycotted the British products and merchants. Since the colonists hated the act so much, they called a meeting in New York City between the days October 7th through 25th, known as the Stamp Act Congress. They were hurt by this act by how the British are using taxes to pay for things and deciding the taxes on their own, than cooperating with the Americans and figure out a solution together. The people that attend the meeting were delegates from 9 of the 13 colonies. They drafted a letter to the king, the letter including things of a petition of the legislature and declaration of their rights and grievances. After only 4 months of the Stamp Act, the British were forced to end the Stamp Act. The colonists rebelled against the British because they found it unfair that the British were assigning all these taxes without the colonists' opinion. I believe that people rebel because they want to share their own opinions, but some people don't listen and choose their own thing to do. So to put in their opinion, they choose actions or words to get people's attention and tell their opinion.
Township Act was a series of laws named after Charles Township and started in 1767 on June 15 through July 2nd, imposed taxes on glass, paper, lead, pens, and tea to raise money in colonies. They wanted to add more taxes into the colonies, but the Americans thought otherwise and of it as a bad excuse and made them stop buying the products. Benjamin Franklin and other Americans had argued about the duties in Stamp Act and the British leaders thought they would accept the taxes as important duties. As stated earlier, Americans believed that Parliament shouldn't force the taxes on people and thought of it as no taxation without representation. It was made mainly for taxes for British goods, which turned out wrong because the colonies stopped using British goods, which affected the trading. The trading service started making less money, which led to not even being able to collect the money because of the poor service. It made the British merchants make Parliament cancel the Township Acts, except for the tax for tea, which made a short and messy peace before the storm that would be the Revolution War. The Tea Act was passed on May 10, 1773 by the Parliament. Americans disguised themselves as Mohawk Indians and boarded the Boston Harbor ships, which led them to pour tea into the water. British East India Company and European markets were going weak due to issues in the French and Indian War. The American colonists were angry because the British East India Company were playing monopoly on the tea. The Tea Act soon led to the Boston Tea Party, which is how the colonists started to rebel.
December 17, 1773 to April 19, 1775 is what they called the aftermath of the Boston Tea Party. Many of the people who were part of the Boston Tea Party fled right after so they wouldn't get arrested. Also, only one of the Sons of Liberty was caught and imprisoned, which was Francis Kelly. He was the only one who was caught. The good thing is that no one died during the Boston Tea Party. There was no violence, no big argument between the Patriots and the Tories. When the Parliament and King George found out what happened, they were very angry. They thought that the people of Massachusetts colony should be punished. The Parliament ordered the Royal Navy to block the Boston Harbor. It also prevents the Massachusetts merchants from selling their goods. As another punishment, Parliament ordered the citizens of Massachusetts to quarter British soldiers. The colonists had to either pay for the food and housing for the British soldiers or give them food and a place to sleep. It does not sound fair because people should not have to give up their homes and food to people they don't even know. They do not let people work and sell their goods. They need the money, especially since they have to pay other taxes. The good thing is that other colonies provided a little for them. I think they had a good reason to rebel against the law. It was not a good law to say that they have to pay taxes, but other people don't have to. The Boston Tea Party had a big impact, which helped start the American Revolution, which began in Massachusetts on April 19, 1775. In my opinion, I think people rebel to prove a point, and they want to get their attention, so they do something big, and it shows that that it is not okay, and they will not go on with it any longer.
This is what we think of why people rebelled during the Sugar Act, Stamp Act, Township, Revenue Act, Tea Act, and Boston Tea Party.
These are the top 5 topics of why we think people rebel.
American Revolution soon came to an end in October 1781.
When General Cornwallis was forced to surrender his position, 2 years later, the Treaty of Paris made it official that America was independent. This podcast is by Laila Rivera,
Keyonna Clark,
Olivia Vu,
Lily Kennebrew.